Hello, and welcome to Reimagining Love. I'm Dr. Alexandra Solomon. I have been studying relationships for over 20 years as a couples therapist, a professor, an award-winning author, and as a wife, mother, daughter, sister, and friend. Now, I'm inviting you into this space each week as I dig into some of the toughest and most fascinating relational dilemmas of our time. If you want to discover how to create vibrant and loving relationships in your own life, you have come to the right place. This is Reimagining Love. Hi, Reimagining Love listener. Okay, today we are revisiting my conversation with my friends Mark and Kylie as we discuss their sacred pause, as they refer to it, which was a break that they took from their relationship to work on themselves. And we talk also about the differences between relationship 1.0 and relationship 2.0. And naturally, I found this conversation to be a perfect pairing with last week's episode called My Partner Wants to Take a Break, What's Next? Mark and Kylie both did an intentional pause and an intentional coming back together. And they created what they called a dating container that was designed to hold them as they assessed what was possible for them coming back together with zero expectations. I really appreciate and admire the work they've done on themselves and the work they've done as a couple and how they speak about it, how they make it an offering to the rest of us. It's really an inspiring case study for the types of love stories that we can have and reminds us that there's no such thing as a waste of time, that even our most painful memories, even our so-called quote unquote failed relationships act as our teachers and have the power to shape who we are and how we love. And that when both partners are committed to doing their own healing work, it is entirely possible to get back together, to be stronger than ever, while also continuing to grow. Hello, dear listener. Welcome back to Reimagining Love. I am so excited to have two of my very dear friends join me on the podcast today. It's Mark Groves and Kylie McBeath. Mark Groves is a human connection specialist, founder of Create the Love, and host of the Mark Groves podcast. His work bridges the academic and the human, inviting people to explore the good, the bad, the downright ugly, and the beautiful sides of connection. He also is one of the greatest cheerleaders and most tireless supporters of my work over many, many years, and he's a really treasured friend of mine. And Kylie McBeath, his wife, also known as Being is Beautiful to her Instagram followers, shares daily wisdom and guidance and teachings about relationships and spirituality and embodied liberation. And she is just a wide open and warm soul. In our conversation, Mark and Kylie get vulnerable about their relationship story, the story that inspired their brand new, wonderful book, Liberated Love. Release codependent patterns and create the love you desire. Through sharing their journey of breaking up or taking a sacred pause, as they rebrand it in this book, to focus on their own inner healing work and then coming back together, Mark and Kylie provide a roadmap from insecurity and codependency toward what they call liberated love. What is liberated love? It's a relationship that allows true self-expression, a relationship that is founded in safety and a dedication to honoring your truth. I'm always so grateful for Mark and Kylie's warmth and openness. And as you'll hear, the honesty and compassion they brought to this conversation inspired me. And I hope that it will inspire you as well. Enjoy. Kai and Mark, thank you so much for being here today with me.
It's such an honor to be in this space, in this conversation, and to see you. Thanks for having us.
I'm always more excited to hang out with you. Allie.
You know, we have been working on this friendship now for years. The first time I met both of you was 2017 on Vancouver Island when Mark hosted his Masters of the Universe conference. And since then, it has been many, many, podcast conversations and parties and lunches and dinners and tech companies and e-courses and so many heartfelt conversations and thought-provoking conversations. I always learn so much when I spend time with both of you. So I'm really happy to have you here and to celebrate you. You guys have written a kick-ass book. It's so good. It's so good. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Coming from you, that's really, that means a lot. Because we love your books and they've been such beautiful teachers for us on our journey. And so to hear you say that means a lot. So thank you, love.
So the way that we always start when there are guest experts in this Reimagining Love space is with the relational self-awareness question. Can I hit you both with it?
Let's go.
Okay. So how are each of you reimagining love in one of your important relationships these days?
You want to kick it? Me. Okay.
You're ready to go. You're gearing up.
Well, having a 1-year-old has definitely made it so I'm imagining love with him and figuring out how to be a dad. And that involves the reimagining of the relationship between Kylie and I, because we went from being a couple to being parents. And so there is a dynamic that is new and novel to both of us, to all three of us, especially for little Jasper, because his is like everything in the world's like, what is happening? But with Kylie, that's certainly shifted things, because having a third as the father, there's definitely been challenges with feeling like I'm a third. They have the primary connection right now. Like really, and Kylie holds that beautiful space to have those conversations and how do we prioritize ourselves as a couple? And how does Kylie get space to prioritize herself in whatever capacity that's even possible right now? And so I feel like it's a work in progress continuously. And I'm grateful that we have the tools to be able to reimagine that in a way that feels hopeful and that something deeper is being born from this, no pun intended.
I think it's really important that you, for as well-tooled as you are, as both of you are and have been going into this journey, I think it's really important that you are like normalizing that, this is a transition. This is like brand new territory. You can have, thank goodness you have the tools and you are leveraging your self-awareness in this chapter, but it doesn't mean it's not confusing and like kind of a reorganization nonetheless, right? Like the tools don't guarantee smooth, easy breezy.
No, they maybe made it less bumpy, but it's still bumpy. It's bumpy because they're feelings of like, they're not new. They like bring up old feelings from being a kid. So, it's also being able to explore when I see Jasper doing things, just being able to explore how do I encourage him? All the different words, it's like I'm like, do I have too many tools sometimes? Am I too aware of everything and not let it just flow?
Well, that's what they say is at the age of your child, you're reparenting your own inner child. So, and I don't know if that's different with the same gender. Like for Mark, it's like we have a little boy. So it's like, is Mark having to do more of that work? I'm not sure, but it's, definitely a journey back into the past and also into the present. And that reorganization, reimagining what does parenthood get to look like for us? What does motherhood, fatherhood, and then as a couple, how do we really build a family culture of love, of connection, of safety for Jasper? For me, reimagining love at this time in this chapter, so much of that has to do with resourcing. Like, how do I resource so that I can even reimagine, so that I'm not stuck in previous patterns or previous dynamics or kind of falling back into being hyper independent? I'll just do it all on my own, because it can be so easy when you're stressed out or overwhelmed to just, all right, screw it. This isn't working. I'm just going to default to what I know best. And so right now, the question that I'm living into and have been living into with Mark in our reimagining is how do we increase the capacity of our individual systems by honoring both of our needs and the needs of our child? And how do we resource so that we can show up well? That's like the biggest question, because I do believe that when we show up well resourced and well nourished, and I know that that's a challenge at this time on the planet, and then we have to get really creative in how we do that. But when we can resource in those ways and kind of break through all of the narratives of like, I should be able to do it all on my own. Yeah, we get to reimagine what family, what coupledom, what parenting looks like. So I'm really excited about reimagining that right now.
You write a lot, Kylie, in this book about how that has been your primary coping strategy is hyper independence. I have to do it all on my own. And I can completely imagine how the transition to motherhood activates that in you. There's so much around like kind of the doing it all as a mom. And so I really like how you're framing this, which is I know I have to resource myself, because if I am not well resourced, I will go to my default place, which is hyper independence, martyrdom. That's my word, not yours. You didn't say that. Like kind of like depletion.
Absolutely.
I love martyrdom.
I do everything. You're not doing everything. Like
just a couple martyrs.
Where are
hanging
you?
out.
It's like,
yeah.
It's so common that like that narrative, especially in the motherhood journey, to like fall back into that. I can feel it.
Well, and what you're saying, I can imagine being confronting perhaps for a listener too, which is you're taking responsibility for your own resourcing so that, right? You're like, the way you started was I'm making sure that myself, Mark, all of us are well resourced so that I don't fall into it, which is really different than saying Mark has to do more so I don't become a martyr. It's really different. So when you're working on making sure that you are resourced, what's an example? Like, what are you doing to resource yourself?
Well, I think first and foremost, I'm naming when that martyr narrative shows up or when I want to default into hyper independence. And for me, so much of my resourcing at this time is really simple, is like sleep and food and nourishment. So I'm like, how do I get high quality nourishment in my body? Because my hormones, I'm sustaining this other being's life. So I need to make sure that I am well nourished. And a lot of that is like hydration, sleep, food, a shower. Like it really comes back to those simple basics right now. And then in addition to those simple basics, one of the main ways we're resourcing, in addition to all those pieces, is we've actually brought on some support to support us during the day, just to create more capacity in our family nervous system. And that's been really supportive of somebody just to help around the house, of doing the dishes, of, supporting in all the myriad ways that I need at this time so that I can be more present for Jasper. And I feel very blessed that we have the opportunity to bring in additional support and hands. And then, another big one for moms and for me specifically in terms of resourcing is joining other circles of moms.
Yes.
I did not realize how much companionship I needed in this journey. I was like, I need to talk to other moms like all day long. And that's been a huge, beautiful blessing, because I feel so well resourced by the other women who've walked the path and are walking alongside me.
Yeah, good. Before we move on, I want to ask you about the term you used. You said our family nervous system. Can you say a bit more about what you mean when you say, so I can care for our family nervous system?
Yeah. So each of us have our own individual nervous systems, and then we are part of a larger nervous system. It's like all of the nervous systems into one nervous system. And so for me, it's how do we nourish that system by making sure that all the individuals in that system are nourished? Because when all nervous systems are honored as individuals, they can be nourished and
there's safety.
There's safety. Like at the root of it, it's like there's safety in the family nervous system. So all of us can actually be here, present, centered, and well.
Yeah, the system honors the self, which in turn honors the system.
I was trying to find the word.
It's like a synonymous, because if there's a lack of honoring of one in the system is not symbiotic.
One more piece is the mother-baby dyad is so real. Like when Jasper is feeling something or experiencing something in his nervous system, so am I. And so it's like, there needs to be an acknowledgement of that, of like, we are so connected for a very specific biological reason of like, I'm responsible for making sure he stays alive. So it's like, we are that connected. And so I think when there's an honoring of that, that's an honoring also of the family nervous system. It's like, we're not actually separate from each other. So when Mark is under-resourced, we're all feeling it. Or when I'm under-resourced, we're all feeling it. And so it's a priority to our own ability to resource, but also to the family system that we all do that work together.
We want to feel it before we get to the martyr.
Yeah, exactly. And we will get there at point.
We'll still get there sometimes, but
yeah. And the martyr is just the blinking indicator light, right? I mean, the martyr doesn't mean that anybody is awful or it's just like, oh, wait, okay, here's the martyr. When the martyr shows up, what does that say to me, to us, and what's needed?
Yeah, that the martyr's welcome. Because we got a few of them. They kick it in the relationship every once in a while. I got one too. Absolutely. I like it. I don't like it, but
But it's real. It's real. Okay, so Liberated Love. Release codependent patterns and create the love you desire. The two of you open this book with a dedication. You dedicate the entire book to your previous partners. Why was that important for you to do?
Because they paved the way. I think about like my previous partners reading this book and being like, well, he definitely wasn't like that in our relationship, which is truth, because I learned through these relational experiences, and all of that woke me up. I always think when someone's like, I don't like this thing about my partner's past, I'm like, well, if you change that one thing, they're not in front of you. Oof. Like you change that one experience. And I always think of that each experience creates the archetype of what you're pursuing, of what you desire in relationship. And for me, there was just such a sacred reverence to those human experiences that without them, I can't love the way I love. I can't. It just felt like a necessary appreciation for me, these wonderful women who have really, I think the ones who really tried to love me when I ran away, like as fast as I could. And I just think like, wow, thank you for all these experiences. And I'm sorry. And I'm turning it into something productive and helpful to other people.
I mean, writing a book on relationships, I always knew we were devoting it to our previous partners.
You did?
Oh yeah. From the get-go, I was like, this is to all of the beautiful teachers we've had in this work, and the most beautiful teachers are the ones we're most intimate with, I find. And so, yeah, I'm so grateful for all of our previous partners, Mark's and mine, because without them, we would not be in this conversation, and all the lessons and all the things we've learned along the way. Yeah, just so much gratitude.
I just love how before you even get to the table of contents, the two of you are inviting your reader into a pretty subversive reframe. I think so much of the conversation between couples, I think so much of what we do is we try to put all of our exes in the past, and put them in a box and have them not. I think the idea is that your ex is a threat to this relationship, or any of those stories are threatening. The idea that my partner has loved before feels threatening to me. It threatens, I think, that romanticized notion of the one and the soulmate. And I think that when you deny the past, your partner's past, your own past, you create the conditions for love that is not liberated. There's something so liberated in blessing and thanking your exes and your partner's exes versus saying, talking about exes and thinking about exes is scary and loaded, and all it can do is threaten the security of what we have now. You're flipping that on its head in a really important way.
It is counterintuitive to think that the people from your past can be productive, mechanisms of growth, and that you can let someone go and appreciate the gifts that you learn from it. And actually, I'm a firm believer that if you put something in a box or try to avoid looking at it, then you don't actually get the learnings from it. And then when we do that, then our past doesn't serve us. It actually becomes something we're ashamed of and afraid of. And I'm not negating someone's experience of the past. That can be obviously the experience of harm. What I'm saying is that you can hold the, as you so famously say, the both and, that you can have experienced being a victim of something and have actually gotten gifts from it. And that's a really hard paradox to hold for humans. So even as I say that, I just want to have so much compassion for someone listening, but it is not the negation of the experience. It's saying, can I alchemize this? Can I use this? Because even if we're in very sensitive circumstances, there still is a tool that we may not have had access to for whatever the circumstances were, that today we actually need that tool. And even from the macro to the micro, it's like I might not have been able to access a no when I was 5, but I need to access a no at 25. And if I don't know how to access a no, my yes is not a clear yes. My yes is not authentic. My yes still comes with small print. Not only is that, in my opinion, a disservice to a relationship, not just for the person you're in relationship with, but really for yourself, because you can't cultivate the deep level of self-trust if you don't have access to your voice. And if you don't have access to your voice, you can't authentically direct your life.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where we start to delineate between the life we're living, that we're expected to live, the love we're expected to have, what is normal, so to speak, to being liberated in relationship, to actually stepping into that relationship and loving bravely. Very much pun intended.
Hey. Uh-huh.
It's true. Like that courageous form of fierce love that is like, I'm actually going to use this relationship with you that demands that I find my voice. I can't be in service of the relationship. You deserve the truth. You deserve my voice. And that might rock us a little bit if formerly there wasn't a safe space, even within our own container.
Yeah. And it can also be so easy to slip into shame, blame, and all of these narratives that really just keep us stuck. I know that for me, after my divorce, I mean, I could have probably stayed in I'm broken, I'm bad, I'm, all of those narratives for the rest of my life. But at some point, you get tired of that narrative. You're like, okay, we're moving on. And I remember standing in my kitchen after my divorce, tears streaming down my face. And all I heard was like, if you don't do this healing work, you're going to sit in this pit of grief forever. And it was like, it's time. Like, you're not going to stop spinning out. Like, this is happening for a reason. You need to trust the journey that you're on and no more sitting in the shame spiral, because there's no power in that for me to move forward if I'm stuck there.
I think a lot of the power of your book, Liberated Love, is that, it's one part memoir. Your story serves the reader, but it is also a book that is very much oriented to the reader. There's so much guidance and wisdom and generous offerings. And you've organized the book in kind of the chapters of your own love story: Relationship 1.0, The Sacred Pause, Relationship 2.0. So I wonder, Kai, you're sort of pointing us towards your divorce. So you were divorced and you and Mark began, your Relationship 1.0 happened there. Can you give us just like a little bit of a flavor of what Relationship 1.0 looked like and felt like? Like, what were the central dynamics that were operating in that first version of Mark and Kai?
Yeah, I remember one of the things that I was super clear on after my divorce was, before you get into your next relationship, make sure you have a strong internal foundation. And for me, I was equating those words with financial stability, because I had been so reliant on my ex-husband for all of my financial safety and security. And in that exchange, I didn't have access to my voice, my full self-expression. And so after my divorce, the adult part of me knew, like, in order for you not to collapse into codependent patterns or to silence yourself, you need a strong internal foundation. And I was on my way when I met Mark, but I wasn't quite there yet. Like, I did not have the internal foundation.
But he had these blue eyes and you were like, I mean, maybe I'm close enough.
Listen, he was a charmer. He had these blue eyes. He was nice. He was
slid into the DM.
It was like, so I kind of just was like, okay, well, I can say yes to this because this feels good and exciting and quote unquote, all the things on my list. But there was a deeper truth, was that I still wasn't actually standing on a foundation of self-trust, of self-competence. And this is where things really started to slide in, is like, okay, well, I'm still going to move forward in my business and try to create this internal foundation within the relationship. And I did do that throughout our first 4-year relationship, which is what we call Relationship 1.0. And I'll say that because I didn't enter with the full access to my no, or to a full access to feeling this level of self-trust, I still entered on like yes and. So I felt split in our Relationship 1.0 because underneath it all, I didn't trust myself. I didn't have the felt experience that I can trust myself no matter what. And how that really played out in our relationship dynamic is I was still sourcing safety and security from Mark at the expense of my whole self-expression. So in relationship 1.0, I didn't have access to anger. That was like a really big piece for me. And access to my voice and access to my boundaries and access to my desires. I thought, well, since he's the one who's wielding the control financially and the one that has more power financially, that I'm just going to let him make all the decisions. And so I kind of sat in the backseat until my soul was like, this isn't going to work for you. Like,
Yeah.
And there's a difference between like the experience of financial dependence
mhm.
and actually having space to be yourself.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when I hear wielding financial control, I'm like, I wasn't like explicitly being like, you can't do this, you can't, I would never do that.
Right.
But it was the experience that was a template that no matter what, even if she was liberated to use her voice, which she was,
Yeah.
but like safe to speak up, safe to choose, safe to, that's not there anyways.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean? Like she's living out a previous pattern that is operating on assumptions of how systems work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Makes sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. What about your part, Mark? Like what?
Oh, I thought we were going to focus on
No, we can't.
No.
How did
Mine.
it fit lock and key into your, how did Kai's stuff fit lock and key into what you brought into 1.0?
Yeah, previous to her and I coming together, I had really been working on receiving love. I've been that was something I was explicitly exploring. Like I hadn't let anyone love me since I was 20-ish, since I'd been through a betrayal. And at this point I was like 35, so I'd spent a lot of time I'd been in relationships, but yet I didn't know that I ran from them because I was terrified. If I let them love me, I'd get betrayed again. I didn't trust myself in connection. And when I met Kylie, I thought I had put some of that to bed, so to speak. And I thought I had, because in the first 8 months of our relationship, there certainly was I felt like I was chasing a little bit, and I was conscious of that, and I brought that forward. And I had said, I feel like the moment I get close to you, you move back, and I'm not interested in that.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't, although apparently I had 4 more years to learn that. Which, hey, never too late. And she had brought forward, we talk about it in the book, that I was sensing something accurate. And it was because she had had a dream of a house burning, and the house was our relationship. And in the dream, she heard, you have to go, or it's time to go.
It's time to go. Yeah.
And so she brought that forward in a conversation. We were in Australia, I remember, staying in Bronte. I remember. You remember these things. So finally it was sort of explicit, right? Like now I wasn't picking up on it from like a nervous system perspective, and intuitively it had been brought forward. She had been holding it by herself, which that's not something a one person can hold. The relationship has to hold it. But then also the person who's being told that has to hold some sort of standard, right? And that's actually what brings forward or invites the healing, whether it's together or not. It is actually the standard of, look, you might need to go. I honor you need to go, but I can't be with someone who might go at any moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I did say that, but I remember doing somatic work after our breakup in our coming back together, because I still sensed this deep lack of trust in what she was saying. Like, I'm choosing you, I'm ready. And I'm like, you said that. I don't trust your choice. And she would say, I'm not going anywhere. This isn't the coming back together. And that was everything I needed to hear. I never heard it before, and I never heard it authentically, because previously she would have said, I'm not going anywhere. And so that would kind of make me melt, but a little bit, there was a lot of grief in hearing that.
Yeah.
And I mean, there was, when I was working with that somatic therapist, I had this awareness that I had a lot of verbal boundaries. Like I could lay a verbal boundary like a champion, but I left my body in places that weren't safe,
Yeah.
So I had stood, and it was that I hadn't, and I could touch this grief because it's deep. It's not unprocessed. It's that I could be with it. It's like a reminder of what happens when you forget about yourself and when you don't have the tools and you don't know and what's normalized in your relationship experience, and then you wake up to the fact that it's normalized, that like somewhere you learned that it's okay to be with people that don't fully choose you.
Yeah.
And it was like when I had that awareness that I left myself in circumstances. I mean, I'd done that before I met Kylie. I mean, I did that with one night stands and all that kind of stuff too. So I had to process the grief of all the times, because the awareness hit me like a truck. And I was like, oh my God, I've not had my own back in so long.
Oh.
So in our ending, it was over for me. Like I had no interest in playing that pattern out anymore, because we had, you get to the place where you're like, I actually just can't do this anymore.
You had tried. You had tried yourself to exhaustion. Yeah.
We did everything. And really what was beautiful about that, and why I'm so grateful that I got to walk that healing path with Kylie, because there's no blame. I was part of it. I chose it. I consented to it. And it would be easy for me to hold a hierarchy of like, I was good, she wounded me. But I fully chose that because I needed to work through what was happening for me. And what really shifted everything was seeing that her dream, that her fear was not actually a problem with her, but actually deep wisdom, that we needed to actually honor her, which was honoring me. And it's interesting because it took me getting to the place of like, this is what I want to create. If you don't want to create it, I want to create it with you. But if you don't, I love you. And like, we just can't continue this way. And I trust that your feeling is probably exactly that, is that you need to go. And I had left an engagement when I was 27, and I would have desperately desired to hear, there's wisdom in your leaving. And so I got to be on the other side, which God bless my ex-fiance, because I got to be on the other side of that conversation and really hold it with truth. Like I could see myself, something I hadn't forgiven,
Yeah.
I'm just going to cry for the whole episode, if you don't mind. This is a therapy session. I thought we were focusing on Guy.
I mean, the way that the two of you, there's so much generosity in what the two of you have done here, because you don't owe this to anybody, but there is so much generosity in the two of you being willing to use your own story for your work. Has obviously served each of you. It serves and will keep serving Jasper. But what you have done, because you each are the people that you are, is you have let us share in your story so that we can learn from you and with you. It's really incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah, it feels like a way to release it.
Yeah.
Like have it be a teacher for other people who might struggle with similar patterns, similar things.
Yeah. Well, that's where the title for Liberated Love came out of, is just like a dream. It dropped into the consciousness and was like, oh, this serves a purpose. Like what we're walking right now serves a purpose. Let's show up fully to this journey that we're on. Mark and I were probably, well, I'll speak for myself, but like leaving relationship 1.0, leaving a really good guy and trusting life again, trusting that there is something else on the other side, was one of the scariest things I ever had to do, because it wasn't just the death of our relationship. It was the death of everything that I knew. Essentially, is like, okay, we're taking a descent to like departicleize identity.
Yes.
Of like, I knew how to relate to the world from being a powerless, broken, split little girl. I did not know how to relate to the world as an embodied, powerful woman. And so it was like that rupture, the depth of love we had in relationship 1.0 is what catalyzed. I remember after we broke up, it was like, what is in the way of my ability to love? I was so angry. I was like, what is in the way? I don't understand. Why can't I just be in love? Why can't I just create a life? And I was just, you have these existential temper tantrums at times in life because you just throw your hands up and you're like, yo,
I'm trying.
I'm doing it all.
Uh-huh.
Let me give me a bone, man. So it's the love I had for Mark that really pushed me into the deepest places I've ever been. And I'm so grateful for that. Just like previous relationships, like pushed me to places I'd never been, because breakups and ruptures are hard. But when we utilize that emotional material to go deeper and liberate ourselves, wow, what's on the other side of that can be really beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we had experienced. So it was like, all right, well, I guess we'll talk about it.
I want to stay on this part. So I want to talk about what you have built in Relationship 2.0. But before we fully move out of 1.0, this is the part of the book where as you talk about your version 1.0 of your relationship, this is where you are helping readers understand family of origin wounds and attachment and codependency. And I think that the two of you have just a really effective way of talking about codependency, the ways that it keeps us hooked and exhausted, because that was what, I hear for both of you, like that pairing of trying, but I was trying to get her to choose me. I was trying really hard to believe that this was all on me, the amount of effort that you were putting in. Can you tell us a little bit about why it was so important for you to focus in this book on codependency and really help your reader understand it and notice it and work with it?
Yeah. So just for the listener, how we define codependency in the book is any relational dynamic where we outsource our safety from someone or something at the expense of our needs, our well-being, and our wholeness. And the key words being at the expense of. So when we're sourcing the safety and security from someone else or from something at the expense of ourselves, we don't have access to real choice, because there's a difference between need and want. It's like, I actually need you to be okay, versus I want to be with you and I am okay on my own. So we really wanted to support the reader, just like we supported ourselves, in identifying, where are you sourcing this safety and security and at what cost? And how do we begin to resource ourselves? Going back to my favorite word, how do we resource ourselves so that we have access to more choice and agency in our lives? And that will look different for every single person.
The way that chapter 2 ends is you have this exercise, and it's called, Where Do I Source? And you basically have us write down and journal about these 4 questions I think are so freaking powerful and confronting. What am I sourcing? Whether it's validation or safety or security or worthiness, from whom or from what? From relationships, from men, from women, from work, from money, from beauty, at the expense of, that's the part, Kylie, you were just putting a big star above, at the expense of my wholeness, my voice, my sovereignty. And is this dynamic sustainable for me, energetically, financially, emotionally?
Yeah, when I ask those questions in my containers, it's actually part of the second week of my programs. And the comments I get on it, they're like, well, we're not playing around. And I'm like, no, we're not. We're not here.
It's very confronting.
It's very confronting.
Because you start to see that, and this word might also cause a stir, but you start to see that it's manipulative. That it's manipulative in a way that you're trying to create safety. So it comes from a good place. It's what worked till now. But when we have this sense that relationship, we're hitting the same patterns, we're hitting the same conflicts, we're not moving through things, we're picking the same types of people, we're not able to move through dialogue well or easily, that we're sourcing something, that there's we're creating safety. And so it's interesting when you start to sit with the truth of, like, at the expense of, because then you now have to be with, much like I was sharing, that caused me to break into tears, that like I'm sourcing safety, but at the expense of being safe, witnessed and truly safe. It's the illusion of safety, because it requires the abandonment of self. And that's a biological process before it's conscious. And so we're saying, let's make it conscious and start to be intentional about what you decide to, because people think the opposite of codependency is overt independence, but it's not. It's actually to be able to be in relationships that are reliable, to create safety.
Mutuality.
Yeah, mutuality. That, one of the principles of Liberated Love is mutual positive regard. That's what we're saying, is like, can we create a space that's about mutual positive regard, that I might need to pay for more things right now because you're not working. What does that bring up for you? Is there something you exchange that you unconsciously feel unsafe to speak? Let's bring that forward. So you make what's implicit explicit, not just get rid of everything,
Yeah.
So as you write about relationship 2.0, I think the most powerful to me element is the way that in relationship 2.0, what each of you is deeply committed to is this idea of if it's coming up for you, it's coming up for us. And you cite something that is from John Gottman's work of like, babe, when you have a problem, the whole world stops, and we look at it together. What is so deep in what you're talking about here is it's not a courtesy. It's not about being nice. It's not about saying like, I love you, therefore I should listen to you. It is about, no. We are interdependent. Therefore, we trust the deep wisdom of each of our bodies and the noticing what Gottman calls that like low negativity threshold, like noticing the whisper and the murmur. So it doesn't have to become a roar, and so that you can really tune in. And you give an example later on in the book when you're talking about relationship 2.0, something that happened around a ticket that was being bought for a visit. Do you remember this example?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's such a good example of like what's coming up for you is coming up for us. And therefore, even if we're scared, even if it's going to rock the boat, our relational agreement, our relational commitment is that we surface it.
Yeah. So Kylie was going to come back to Vancouver to visit. This is in the reimagining of 2.0. And I had said, I'll pay for your plane ticket. And she had said, no.
No, I said, yeah.
Oh, she did say yes.
Yeah.
And then when she came to the house, I remember she was sharing that she had felt like she couldn't receive it.
Mm-mm.
How'd it go?
Yeah. I lived in my body. So
I remember where the conversation of the acknowledgement happened at the stairs. But,
Mark is like, I'll buy your ticket. And I was like, yeah, okay. And then immediately after accepting this, my nervous system went like full tilt, or I was like activated. I didn't feel well. And immediately I internalized that. I was like, okay, there's something wrong with me. I can't receive this.
Yeah.
What's wrong with me? He's being nice. This is a gesture. And it kept stewing. And I was like, wow, okay, maybe this is the wrong move. Maybe I shouldn't go to Vancouver, like trying to just like mentalize what was actually my body saying. And then I just was like, screw it. I'm just going to tell Mark, like, for whatever reason, my body is having a moment, a trigger, or being activated by you offering to pay for my ticket. And I don't know what that is. And in bringing that forward to Mark, you replied.
Yeah. I love how my memory skipped over your nervous system experience.
She's got it.
I remember her sharing it with me and me having this, oh, whoa, because when I had offered to pay for her flight, I had just heard this voice be like, if you pay for the flight, you've got her. Oof. But I had thought, well, that's not genuinely real. Like that's not true. I kind of thought of it like a little golem in me, my precious. So when she shared what she had experienced when I offered to pay for it, I was like, wow, maybe I'm just going to share something that came up for me. I heard this little voice say, if I pay for it, then I got you. And then there was just this acknowledgement because I said, wow, maybe your response is actually noticing my deeper manipulative technique that I don't even know I'm doing, but now I know I'm doing. And that means I did it it wasn't a clean exchange. And I remember that just being this beautiful moment of Kylie starting to really, truly see, like not just see for herself, but it to be honored from the external, that her responses and intuition and guiding was not a problem with her, but rather wisdom.
Yes.
And that changed a lot because it validated her not being broken, but actually brilliant.
It changed everything.
Yeah.
It reestablished safety.
Yeah. And it opened the door by you being brave enough to put your little kind of whispers from within you, by you being brave enough to put that in the space between the two of you. It allowed Mark to then share, you know what? There's something going on my part too. And what I hear loud and clear is then it did not become figuring out who screwed up or who is the bad one or who has more pathology. It was just like kind of a, like that study response, like that, okay.
It was so cool. And this has happened so many times in our relationship 2.0 of coming back together, of like honoring each other's somatic signals and bringing it forward without, needing to change, fix, etc. And letting us both sit with what is going on underneath our conscious awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's something our bodies are telling us that we don't have words for or maybe can't identify. But every single time we bring it forward, he goes deeper, I go deeper. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been waiting my whole life for someone to acknowledge that little golem. Or, you know what I mean? Yeah. I was like, I'm actually been feeling that. And thank you for acknowledging it, because now I can actually trust you.
Yes. Yeah. And the little golem doesn't make him a bad guy, doesn't make him manipulative. It is a part. It's a part of him.
But I'm happy it's at the table now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that little part is right. That little part just wants to be near you and to be connected to you and to yeah.
Yeah, I had that, of course, acknowledging that I had this little, like, I'm outing this part of me, but it was beautiful because it wasn't seen as you're a manipulative piece of whatever. It was seen as like, oh, that was actually the piece we needed. Like that, by you bravely being vulnerable of this thing you're ashamed of, that you see as being a manipulative, sort of shadow side, well, definitely shadow, that actually it's bringing forward light through both of us, which it was a really beautiful, it next leveled us.
Yeah.
And Kai, what you're saying is that it goes the other way too. Like there are times that Mark will turn to you with something that's happening inside of his body, a little inkling, a little something going on. And then your commitment is to bear witness to it and work with it as well. Huh?
Absolutely. And there actually more recently in our relationship, we've had a big one where Mark's like, body, something's coming up. And I was just like, I can't see it. I don't know what you're talking about. And like, he kept bringing it forward. And I was like, I'm open to looking at it. I'm open to sitting with it. And then like, with our shared devotion and agreement to truth and bringing these things forward and examining ourselves, relational self-awareness, we actually started to get to a deeper root of a pattern that had to do with home and landing and place and just like really old stuff that, again, you don't know is operating until somebody's body is like, hey, something's off here. We got to look at it. And so, yeah, it goes both ways.
Well, and Kai, what you're saying is like, sometimes in the moment, the example that you gave of the ticket, it sounds like it pretty quickly clicked in. You shared something, Mark synced up with it, but you're saying that there are times too where Mark may say, hey, I have this thing that's going on, and you may not know right away what your piece of it is, but that doesn't mean that then the verdict is, this is a Mark one, this is just Mark. It just is, we don't know yet. We don't know yet what the like full, deeper relational bit is here, but it doesn't mean that the door is closed. It just means that Kai isn't right away connecting to the relational piece.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
She has a little.
Sometimes it takes time.
She had a little reluctance on that.
Sometimes it takes time.
Yeah. Sometimes it takes time.
That's right.
Sometimes you need a couple reminders of like, nope, there's still something here, and I'm like, okay,
yeah, really,
I'll go deeper, or
I'll
resource from somebody else.
And I imagine when there is a new, when there's a new baby and when there's sleep, like all these contextual variables, right, that do take us, even if you very much want to be connecting and understanding your part of it, there are things that for either of you can make you distractible, can make you a little bit like, not quite as well tuned in as you are at other times.
Yeah. And I always tell him, like, I have blind spots. I'm aware of that. And so I appreciate you for continuing to presence this. I'm willing to look at my blind spots. I can't see them right now, or I might need to bring in a third person, or I might need to talk to somebody to help me see this, or let's bring in some additional eyes so that we can work through this and find the roots. And luckily, we continue to find the roots, and it's actually, I don't know, maybe
it's liberating, honestly.
It's so fun.
It brings peace because there's no longer, the nervous system isn't dysregulated about not being able to organize. It's like when you have something coming up for you and there's not an ability to contextualize it or pathologize it. And I don't mean in the like, I always need to pathologize everything, but I mean being able to, as you talk about, to be able to name it and then actually deeply connect to what it is and then choose. You know your process well.
Name, connect,
good
choose.
We love it. And so that being able to bring something that I was internally really feeling chaotic about and very destabilized about, and then us hold it together. I don't have to hold it by myself. And then we, as Rumi says, oh, is it Rumi? It might be Rilke. I think it's Rilke. to live the questions.
Mm.
And so that's what we started to do instead of like seeking an answer, like it has to be this. How do we live the questions of, and for us, the topic is home. Where's home?
Yeah. Yeah. I know that so many people who are listening want to understand how you moved from your sacred pause. So you guys write in the book that a sacred pause is what you call it if you get, it's a fancy way of calling it what it was, if you get back together. If you don't get back together, it was just a breakup. But for the two of you, it was a sacred pause. And I know that there's a lot of like curiosity about what does that like transition, what did that transition look like out of the sacred pause and the space and the distance and the breakup to the two of you kind of dipping toes and more toes back into connection with each other. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, I think for context too, like the book is written for anyone of any relational status.
100%.
Yeah. And the reason I say that is because the sacred pause is really the pause between old behaviors, old relationships. As Esther Perel would say, get divorced and stay together. It's kind of a similar concept that, you know, as Stan Tatkin says, like the reason relationships end is because they fail to create really solid agreements at the start. And so this container is really about creating agreements, whether it's with yourself or with, you know, a therapist or coach as a single person, so that there's some level of accountability to stopping the old patterns. Maybe it's, you know, we talk about, Kylie did a man talks between our 1.0 and 2.0, but really being able to create this healing space that says, I'm no longer going to engage in behaviors that are distracting me from growing and creating the relationship I desire. If we're in a relationship, for us, that pause, I wish we had had the technology of the pause, the sort of ritual nature of it, because we obviously didn't, so we could create it. But the idea is like when we were actually in that space, we didn't have a teacher that could actually walk us through how to move from these unconscious, really deep layers of codependency that are not, the idea of a codependent hook is not common language about codependency. It's not language at all. And we really started to see these really deep ways that we try to keep people closer, keep people away, that were really getting in the way of relationships. So the pause is really this technology to say, like, if we're in a relationship, how do we create agreements around what was and what we no longer want to do? What do we want to bring to life through our relationship? Who do we want to become? What do we dream about? What no longer serves us? You know, the pause is about actually creating a space that is dedicated to truth. You know, if you're in a relationship and you're uncertain or you want to go to the next level, there has to be a dedication to telling the truth. We call it fierce love. It's like this, I will not protect your feelings from reality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And how we speak our truth really matters too. Like, right? How we approach our truth and dynamics and conversations and relationships really matter. But to go back to your question in terms of how did we move from the sacred pause to 2.0, in a very similar fashion, we created a container, a dating container. We created agreements around, okay, we're open and want to explore if there's potential for us to come back together romantically, and what's going to support us in being able to discern and feel our way through to find the most authentic, loving answer. And so for us in that dating container, we said, okay, we're going to date for 3 months and we're not going to have sex because sex just clouds things.
No
it can
penetrative sex.
Sorry, no penetrative.
No enveloping. No, Allie shared that term. I was like, that sounds so much better than
I've never heard that.
Kai's going to like it. Rather than calling it penetration, why don't we call it envelopment? It's a much, you know.
Oh, yeah, I went.
I like that, but I've never
That was the wrong term. I've never. Enveloping. Wrap it up in an envelope.
Envelopment. The risk of a paper cut.
I'm like, huh?
Yeah, just put it in here.
Yeah, we just took it off the table. We were just like, let's not, because hormones and, you know, we're mammals underneath it all too. And that plays a role, and it also creates sexual hooks and can cloud our discernment. At least in our experience, it can cloud discernment. And I would say that it can cloud discernment for all, but not receiving financial support through Mark, because that just couldn't be. We just needed to move it off the table so that we didn't have to deal with that in general and getting in the way and muddling our ability to discern. We were devoted to truth and weekly check-ins and basically living into the question of like, what is the most highest, loving, supportive container for us? Is it to move on and go our separate ways? Or is it romantic partnership? Or is it friendship? And week by week, Mark and I continued to live into that question. And in that 3-month dating container, we moved through a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff that needed to be processed and integrated for us to fully arrive at a yes.
Yeah, that process, I was the catalyst to my tears was that conversation about working with a somatic therapist. And that was during the container because I was realizing that I was bypassing that I was this relationship a fit for me. I was already like, well, we're back in and it's going. And actually through the container, I was able to see that I accelerate things to create safety, but not because they're safe. You know, I try to put labels on things to create safety, but not because they're safe. So I exit discernment and go into this coping strategy, this survival strategy that is like really rooted in the desire for closeness, but trying to create certainty on a false sense of security, you know? And so that allowed me to stay in my body, to stay centered. And that's why throughout the book, you know, we refer to, there's really no healing incomplete of healing the nervous system. Like you have to bring the concept of the nervous system into it. Yeah. Because all those things we do that we're like, I don't know why I do that. It's not a great, I don't want to do it, is really led by that. And so we were able through the container, it really offers an opportunity to both co-regulate and then through that self-regulate.
Yeah.
And it is through the shared safety that there starts to be an ability to self-regulate, which of course, you know, through motherhood and fatherhood and all that kind of stuff, that's how we learn it. And some of us don't learn it. And so for me, a lot of that was being able to be with Kylie in the questions in the container that it brought forward. And I really am so grateful for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you guys. I mean, thank you. Thank you for the work that you have done individually and the work you have done together and then the work that you share with us. I mean, you both bring so much thoughtfulness and care and integrity to what you create. Thank you.
Thank you, love.
Thank you for this conversation.
Yeah, this was so fun.
Thank you.
As always, such a joy to be in combo with you.
Well, I know that people just tell the people where to find you. So we've got links. We will put links to the book in the show notes. The book is available wherever books are sold. We love to send people to bookshop.org to buy their books. It supports the indie booksellers. But what are the ways to get to be near you and to keep learning from you?
You can go to createthelove.com/liberated love, and that'll bring you to all the links to get it. But you can get it wherever you want to. If you use bookshop.org, you could support a local bookstore.
Amazing.
If you go to that link, if you put in your order number, you can get a free download of a meditation we created, as well as a workbook that goes along with it. And thank you to everyone for listening. And yes, please order the book. It's a really powerful guide into how to do this. And Allie, thank you so much. We love you and appreciate you dearly.
Oh,
and thanks for putting me on your couch today.
Loved it. I loved it. Thank you both so much. I love you as well. Thank you, Mark and Kylie, for joining me here today. You can find Liberated Love, release codependent patterns, and create the love you desire wherever books are sold, or you can just use the link in the show notes. And thank you for joining us. I hope this conversation was a source of inspiration and nourishment for your soul. And I will see you next week here on Reimagining Love. And until next time, be well. Do you have a relationship question that you want answered on the show? Visit reimagininglove.com to send in a written or audio question. Questions can be about intimate partnerships, family relationships, friendships, you name it. If you're looking for more love and relationship content, you can find me on Instagram at dr.alexandra.solomon or visit my website, dralexandrasolomon.com, where you'll find my blog as well as the Intimate Relationships 101 e-course based off of the popular class I teach at Northwestern University. Thank you for listening and see you next week here on Reimagining Love.